You are listening to the Examine Life with Bram Levinson. Well, hello. It is lovely to be back behind this microphone. It hasn't been that long, but for me it feels like it's been that long because I have been doing other things that have kept me from being able to just sit here with this microphone and share stuff with you. I've been traveling and living and in moments feeling a little bit guilty that I haven't been behind this microphone, but here I find myself now with time to do it, and I think it's perfect, really. I don't believe in accidents, and I think that everything works itself out. And although it was sort of hovering in the back of my mind that it had been a while since I had recorded an episode, I also knew that when the time was right, when the time would be right, it would be right, and I would recognize it, and here we are. So, I was away in Miami over the past week, just taking some time for myself and doing what I could to get away from winter here in Montreal, which today specifically is probably one of the most demonic moments that I've ever had to live through. And as many of you know, I'm not a fan of winter. But I begrudgingly bear it, and I just needed a break. I planned this a long time ago. I actually went to the States. I went to Miami to see the Madonna concert, and the most beautiful byproduct of going was that it was at this time of the year when Montreal, or rather hell, hath freezed over. And it let me get to heat and humidity and sun, and it let my skin come back to something that resembled living, and my lungs and my sinuses. It was a wonderful moment. And I think that the older I get, the more I think I'm going to try and do that. I don't know if it'll be Miami, but try and sort of cheat some time away from Montreal winter, because it is brutal. For those of you who are in Montreal or around Montreal and you know what I'm talking about, you know, the struggle is real, as I've said on many occasions. But when I was in Miami, I was on the beach and I was watching the ocean. I was watching the tide and sort of the state of it. You know, one morning I went out and it was really, really, really like aggressive. It was roiling and windy, and the waves were crashing. And you know, the next day I went out and it was totally, totally peaceful. Like almost like the tide was almost like unnoticeable. Surface of the ocean was almost like glass. You could see right through it. The sun made the areas that were more shallow look super aquamarine. It was lovely. But I was thinking about the differences in the ocean day to day. And it made me think of something that we read about and that we learn about from the Bhagavad Gita, which are referred to as the Gunas. And the Gunas are essentially just qualities of nature, qualities of life, and everything that constitutes and contributes to life. And the ocean really made me think about it. And again, you know, one day it would be calm and peaceful. The next day, you know, roiling and roaring, larger waves rolling themselves into themselves, like with an onslaught of, you know, that white foamy spray that unleashes clouds of, I guess, salt spray and water into the air. And then the day after, there would be, you know, barely any movement, almost as if the edge of the water couldn't be bothered to reach up onto the sandy beach. So these three qualities, the gunas, they exist everywhere. They exist all around us. They exist within us, in our mood, our appetite, our libido, you know, the social and political climate that we find ourselves in and that, you know, came before us and that will come after us, our relationship to money and people and ourselves, our ambition, our careers. You know, these qualities exist within a minute, within an hour, within a day, within a month, a year, a lifetime. And they really do coexist within us, with moments of energy being replaced by feelings of peace and harmony, and then sluggish laziness creeping in only to be replaced by the spark of whatever gets our asses into gear to get up and move on to the next task or conversation or action. And I wanted to really sort of share the gunas with you. I do this typically with people who are studying yoga and studying Hinduism, but I figured it was a good topic to introduce to those who are not familiar with it. And it just felt natural. You know, those moments in Miami when I was aware of, the clear blue sky, and then the next day the low clouds that were sort of rumbling over us, threatening to like unleash holy fury with rain. And by the way, there's no thunderstorm better than a tropical thunderstorm. I mean, those are so good that they're mimicked in spas. When you go into those showers, like the tropical rainstorm, and all of a sudden you got like 50,000 jets flooding you from all points, from all directions. I mean, that's how good it is. But let me tell you about the gunas. Let me tell you about these qualities of nature. And I'm reading that right now from the Living Gita, which is an interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Satchitananda. And in this book, as I've spoken about before, there is a conversation between a boy who is about to go to war and God as Krishna, who is encouraging him, or not encouraging him, but he's telling him about life, and he's telling him why he should fight this fight that is before him. And he tells Arjuna that the forces of nature are harmony, restless activity, and inactivity. And so harmony in Sanskrit is sattva, restless activity is rajas, and inactivity is tamas. And they are said to arise from the creative energy which binds the indestructible one to the physical body. So they arise from the energy that connects this energy that we find in every one of our bodies to the body itself. Now, the sattvic guna, which is the quality of harmony, is said to be pure and luminous and without obstructions, but it still binds you by giving rise to happiness and knowledge to which the mind readily becomes attached. So when things are harmonious, we feel great, and we want to keep feeling great. And so this can be an obstacle to finding total peace, because what started out as harmony quickly turns into something else when we want it to stabilize, when we want it to be a constant. And obviously nothing is ever a constant. So sattva is a great aspect or a great quality of nature to experience, but if we get too attached to it, then we start to crave it. And when we start to crave something, that's when that element of sattva gets lost. The seed of passion is rajas, or in brackets it says restless activity, which gives rise to thirsts and thereafter the bondage of selfish attachment. So this in turn leads to compulsive behavior. So it can be said that if one gets too accustomed to something that feels good, let's say like harmony, then very quickly this restless activity, this rajas, this passion starts to arise, and it motivates us to seek out more of that thing. Think about addiction. Think about when we start to chase something that we want, but it seems to elude us. And so rajas in itself obviously can lead to compulsive behavior. And again, that is a barrier or an obstacle in us finding what we're looking for in this experience of life, which is, I guess, non-attachment to all qualities. It's to be so, I don't even want to say peaceful, but to be so unbothered by any of it. To be neutral. Equanimity, for lack of a better term. And so we see that rajas and sattva both can become obstacles to finding what we're looking for in this experience of life. Now, the third quality is tamas. The quality of tamas veils the mind in ignorance, and ignorance of reality. Reality being that all of these aspects of the human experience are just aspects of the human experience, and there is this entirely other spiritual experience that is unfolding and coexisting simultaneously to it. And once we are awake to that, we start to take this human experience with a little bit less seriousness. We don't get as caught up in the daily dramas. And I think I've said it in a previous episode of the podcast, but going to Miami and coming back was very much an exercise in not exercising too much spiritual bypass while still being connected to the actual world and the environment that I found myself in. And the reason I'm saying this is because I tend to see everything that unfolds before my eyes as different scenes in the film or the play of life that is I guess, arising within my awareness. So I've said it before. I go to the airport. I play all the games. I wait in all the lines. I go to the gate. I sit at the gate. I get up. I show someone else all the shit I showed before. Get on the plane. Sit on the plane. The plane shakes. I distract myself by watching shows or something or reading. Occasionally there's, some serious turbulence and I see some white-knuckled passengers around me. And then the plane ultimately lands. And after 3.75 hours, I find myself, now I'm in Miami. And while I understand the literalness of all of that, there's a part of me that also wonders if there isn't this thing that's going on, this play that's going on where, I sit down in this plane, I go to the airport, I sit down in this plane. The plane doesn't actually take off. It just sort of goes through. It's like some simulator, right? Where everything's shaking and people are walking by with different sets, so it looks like I'm taking off, and look, there's farmland and it's icy and it's white, and that quickly turns into it's not white, and then all of a sudden you look down and you see the beautiful ocean. Like, listen, I understand on a literal level. I went up at a plane, the plane brought me somewhere, but on like a spiritual level and on like a questioning reality level, who's to say? Like, what the fuck do I know? For all I know, it could just be this series of scenes that are unfolding in front of me, convincing me that I should be playing the game where everybody believes that that's what life is. I like to sort of fuck around with what's going on in my mind, and I get a kick out of it. I don't take any of it too seriously. So, I get to Miami, and I'm just observing everything that's unfolding. The people who are there, the way the air smells different the second I land, the smell of air conditioning in humid, in tropical environments. And then just driving down the highway and driving into Miami Beach and seeing the ocean, finding myself there again, the food, and then getting, going to see the Madonna shows and having all that spectacle in front of me. And yes, I'm there. Obviously, I'm physically there and I'm mentally there. But part of me is also just in awe of this film that is unfolding in front of me, because what a fantastic film it is. I suppose that I'm trying to stay a little unattached to everything so that I don't take any of it too seriously, because the more unattached I stay to it, the more I can roll with whatever it is. I can roll with whatever is unfolding in front of me. And so I'm in Miami, and I know that in the blink of an eye it's going to be over. And, lo and behold, after 5-6 days, I head back to the airport and do it all over again. Oh, okay, back to Montreal. Let me be patient and play the game, and I land in Montreal, and it's the same. It's the same film. You get out of the airport, you get your bag, you get into an Uber or a cab, and you go home, and all of a sudden I'm here. And that experience of Miami is in there. It's in my brain, but it isn't like in front of me, right? What's in front of me is how the play is unfolding, how the film is unfolding. So this whole experience of life for me, especially when things get interesting with travel and it's not just the same day in, day out routine, I like to experience through this lens of reframing, assigning different meaning, seeing it in a different way. I think it's listen, is it healthy? I don't fucking know. It's enjoyable. It makes me enjoy this experience. So as I was doing all of that, I was just hyper aware of the qualities of nature. When I would see someone who is aggressive in Miami, I would think, oh, there's Rajas. And when I would see, people just hanging out on the beach or in the spa and just relaxed, I would think sattva. There's so much sattva. And then, of course, there's the quality of tamas, which veils the mind in ignorance of reality. And the reality, as I said earlier, is that it's not just the literal going on, that there is something else going on. And when I say I believe that nothing is happening by accident and I believe that everything works itself out, it is by putting my faith in that I start to get closer to what is referred to as reality in Hindu scripture, in spiritual circles, in my life. Tamas, which veils the mind in ignorance of reality, deludes and binds all embodied beings through carelessness, laziness, and oversleeping, or dullness. So if we were going to assign a quality to each quality, sattva would be harmony, rajas would be restless activity, and tamas would be laziness, real like sluggishness. Now, in terms of them being obstacles to to finding what we're looking for in this experience of life, well, sattva binds us to happiness, rajas binds us to compulsive behavior, and tamas, by veiling our minds, binds us to confused thinking and to bad judgment. So when the light of wisdom shines through all the gates of the body, this is a sign that sattva is dominant. When you see harmony, when you see somebody who just seems good, they just seem good and grounded and present and peaceful, then it's a sign that sattva is dominant. Whenever you see greedy behavior, restlessness, or continuous thirsting after one thing or another, these are signs that rajas is dominant. And again, this is restless activity. When tamas is dominant, ignorance, sloth, and indiscriminate thinking arises. I'm getting to something with all this, I promise. The fruit of good actions is a pure and sattvic mind. So, what instigates good, kind actions is the mind feeling harmonious, the mind being at peace. The fruits of rajas ultimately are pain and suffering. So good actions are instigated by harmony and result in harmony. Rajas, what comes from rajas? Debatable about what instigates it, but what comes from it? Pain and suffering. Now, whatever instigates tamas also can change, but the result of it is ignorance. And that is mistaking the unreal for the real. And to make that even clearer, it's believing that this human experience, the daily dramas, are real and that they're what we should be focusing on and that we are at their mercy, because that is absolutely not true. We have control over how we respond to what happens around us, and let's remember that. Psychology 101, Hinduism 101. So wisdom arises from sattva, greed arises from rajas, and from tamas comes carelessness, errors in thinking, and ignorance. Now, those whose minds, you may be already considering or thinking about people who you think fall into one or many of these categories. Those whose minds are normally sattvic are uplifted. Those in rajas stay where they are, but those in tamas lose ground. Now, whoever sees that all actions are done by these forces of nature, which are the gunas, surely that person is awake in the world and is a seer and rises to what is referred to as a godlike state. Now, what I wanted to lead all this up to is we're going into the holiday season. Actually, you know what? We're in it. That goes to show how not aware of it I am. I don't partake in any of it except, knowing that pretty soon the yoga and meditation city break in Rome is coming up, and I know there's a date for that, which is essentially, 10, 11 days. But I know that in this holiday season, there's a lot of gift giving. And as someone who used to work in retail all those years ago, I've seen a lot of people buying gifts who don't seem to want to buy the gifts. I can't tell you how many people I've seen buying things and they look annoyed. They throw their credit card over the counter. They seem like they're doing whatever they're doing out of duty and obligation, but not out of want, it looks like. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen the film or read the book Like Water for Chocolate by, I think her name is Laura Esquivel. But it's a story, and I'm just giving you one aspect of it, but essentially it talks about the love of cooking and how whatever the person who is cooking a meal for other people, whatever that one person is feeling, whatever emotions are present within that one person, that gets transferred into the food. And then whoever eats the food, that emotion or those emotions get transferred to them. So, if there's sexual desire, then people eat this food and feel like the sexual desire arise. And if there's sadness, then people eat the food and they start crying. Now, I've always thought that if you buy a gift and you really don't want to do it, that gets transferred. It gets transferred when whoever gets the gift not that they necessarily understand that you didn't want to get the gift, but it somehow just doesn't land in the way that you might want it to land. You know, if I buy somebody something, I want them to love it, and I want them to really, I don't want to say appreciate it, but I want them to really just love whatever that gift is and know that there was a lot of thought that went into it. If I'm buying something because I'm, running late and I have to get it and I just buy whatever and I couldn't care less, I think that sort of, indifference gets transferred. The person who receives it will be like, yeah, whatever. Nice, thanks. Now, when we talk about the qualities of nature, they also apply to giving. And I really wanted to bring this up now at this time of the year. When you give something to someone simply because you feel it is right to give it, and there's no thought of receiving anything in return, and it's given at the right moment, at the right place, and to the right person, then it is pure giving, which means that this is sattvic giving, harmonious giving. If a gift is given reluctantly, or in the hopes of receiving a favor or anything else in return, then that giving is motivated primarily by the desires of a restless mind, because the mind isn't simply in the piece of, I want to give something to you. It's rooted in, what am I going to get from this? I'm going to do this. It's going to be transactional. I'm going to do this, and maybe I'll get something in return. And that's rajasic, and that is a sign of a restless mind. That's not peace. The mind is not at peace. It is working. And it's calculating. Now, if a gift is given rudely or without affection to an inappropriate person at the wrong place and wrong time, that is given from a state of dullness. So that is tamasic giving. Sort of referring to what I was talking about, people who are doing it out of duty and obligation, but they really couldn't give a shit about what they're buying. They really couldn't give a shit whether the person they are giving it to likes it or not. It's lazy. And I have made somewhat of a habit now in my life of, if I don't know what to get someone who I really care about, and it's their birthday or some other, an anniversary, some event that I feel I want to buy them something for, or just like I see something and I want to buy it for them. But if I don't know what to get, and something is coming up where traditionally you would give them a gift on that day, I won't give them anything, and I'll tell them, I'm not going to forget, but when I know what to get you and when I see it, I'll know and I'll get it and know that it's going to come from the most pure place. I know people in my life who give the same way and they give to me the same way, and I know that there's real love and real thought and real planning and real care that goes into that. And I would much appreciate I don't need anything, but if someone is going to get me something, I would much prefer that they get me something that made them think of me and made them feel good, instead of just, going somewhere and going, oh yeah, that looks nice, price is okay, sure, and then shifting it off. Because ultimately, listen, it's all just stuff. Right? It's all just shit. It's all, regardless of what you call it, whether it's an iPhone, whether it's a pair of jeans, whether it's a car, whether it's a house, whether it's a watch, regardless of whatever we've been told we should want, it is all just shit. It's all just more shit to defend. It ends up piling up somewhere, maybe not the houses, unless you're, making shit tons of money. But ultimately, it's just stuff. And ultimately, no matter how many houses you have or how many watches you have, you don't take it with you. And what we've seen in studies on happiness, by the way, is that the people who are uber wealthy, yes, they report a greater percentage of happiness in their, let's say, 24-hour period or their entire life. But the difference between their percentage of happiness and someone who doesn't have money, their percentage of happiness, it's not as big as you would think. So, yes, money may bring more comfort and, thereby more happiness if we can attain more of the things that our culture has convinced us we should be able to attain. But is it that much more happiness? It actually isn't. And so what I find is that if you're going to give someone something that is going to fall into the category of stuff that ultimately at the end of their life is just going to either have to be thrown out, sold, or given to someone else, put some thought into it. And if you can't come up with something for someone and you really do want to get them something, write them a card and tell them, I'm banking this one. Because when I see something, no matter where I am in the world, and it makes me think of you, I will get it, and I will get it for you. And it will be coming from me for you. If you are going to be one of those people who, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but if you're someone who buys gifts at the time of the holidays, I'm challenging you now to give those gifts from a place of love and a place of purity, especially if you're giving them to someone or to someones who you seem to be in conflict with or you have been in conflict with. I know that, this is a time of the year when we see family members and no one knows how to push our buttons better than family members, and vice versa. We know how to push their buttons. But if you are in that situation where you are buying for someone or someone's, do it from a place of purity. Do it from a place of sattva. And ultimately have some sort of, symbolic or spiritual sight to understand that it's not about the gift. It's about the urge that you feel to give to whoever you give to out of a place of love, so that you somehow affect them in a better way and you help make their experience a little more pleasurable and you bring them a little bit more of what they're looking for in their life. And again, I'm not referring to the stuff, but I'm referring to the emotions that arise from the act of giving. I think that it's really important that we understand that it's not about necessarily what you give. It's about the thought that goes into it, because that gets transferred like water for chocolate. So at this time of the season, I just want you to reflect. I want you to be aware of these three qualities of nature. And in the last episode of the podcast, I talked about cycles. And in any cycle, there is sort of an inception, there is a maintenance, and there is a dissolution, right? A dissolving of that cycle so that another cycle can begin. If you wanted to, you could apply these qualities of nature to whatever cycles you find yourself in. And notice where sattva is present, where rajas is present, where tamas is present. Now, what's really fascinating is that we are all of these qualities. And these qualities are at work, interplaying with each other wherever we look. There are going to be moments of your day where there is pure harmony. But if you let that harmony stay, sort of maintain itself and eventually become stagnant, it becomes tamas. It can become laziness, right? Harmony can gradually dissolve into, I am now part of the sofa. At which point we need a little bit of rajas to sort of spark our ass up into gear so that we get up and actually continue moving and participating and being part of our world and our environment and being productive and all of those things. Now, if you're somebody who is constantly on the go, well, you need a little tamas. You need a little lazy to bring you down so that you can sort of balance out your nervous system. And same thing, if you are rajasic by nature, then maybe you need a little bit of sattva. You need a little bit of harmony. So maybe a little bit of tamas for someone who is rajasic gradually results in harmony, which ultimately then will need a little bit more rajas so that more action can happen. If you look at any given day, in the morning you wake up, hopefully sattvic, you need a little bit of rajas to get you up, get your fire going for the day, and you maintain it. Rajas to keep you going throughout the day, and then as you unwind at the end of the day, a little bit of tamas to bring you back down, to bring the nervous system back down, to prepare the body for sleep, to prepare the mind for sleep. We are constantly at the interplay of these qualities. They are, again, not only within us, but around us everywhere. And there are going to be moments in your career where it's going to be helpful for you to put a little bit of passion into it, to be a little bit more rajasic. There are going to be moments where tamas is going to be necessary because you've been going and going and going and going and you're burning yourself out, and harmony seems so far away, so you need tamas to bring you back down. Once you are back down, there will be those moments of clarity and harmony and beauty. And then rajas will undoubtedly be needed to sort of get you going on the next steps of whatever project you're on or on whatever next step there is. But this is something that applies to our relationships and to our friendships, and not necessarily just our relationships like externally to other people and other things, but to ourselves. How are we with ourselves? Are we letting ourselves get away with shit? Are we lazy in our own self-discipline? What about financially? Is there a passion to spend, 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 spend? Can we have symbolic sight and understand that money carries the energy we give it? So, much like what I was talking about, giving from a good place, money carries the same energy. So there is going to be sattvic spending, there's going to be rajasic spending, there's going to be tamasic spending. I want you to really be aware of this, and I want you to start to look at any given moment of any given day, at whatever you're doing, and just start to identify what's present, and then start to identify what's needed to keep everything going smoothly and for there to be balance, because ultimately balance is about a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of the other. So, with all of that said, I wish you happy holidays. I will do another episode of the podcast before New Year's. It will be the end of year episode. I don't know yet whether I'll still be in Montreal or by that point I'll be in Italy, but stay tuned. Give this all a good think, and I will see you later. This has been the Examine Life with Bram Levinson.